Happy Sunday, friends. I hope you guys are well. And I will let Instagram tap us in, give us a couple seconds to get going. And let's see if it'll give me the signal that you guys are around. I hope you guys are well. Hope you had a great trading week. We had a very good trading week, I should say. So that was impressive. But yeah, if you were trading this week, let me know what you were trading and let me know if you can hear me. Because yeah, I'm using different headphones today, so I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. And I see my co-host is here. Welcome, sir. Finicky with us. Oh, perfect. I'm glad you guys can hear me. Hello, Uncle Charles. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good, good. Been
I
a
am
while.
actually, yeah, I'm actually tapping in from Albania. So it's like every time we catch up with each other, it's like we got to get a different country on the board.
Okay, you just traveling all over the place.
Well, I have to say it's a little bit hilarious. So my sister decided to come down and visit,
Okay,
and then we were surrounded by wildfires, and then we had to evacuate. So we ended up they did end up they evacuated us to another side of Montenegro,
mm,
but we had already planned to come down to Albania, so we just decided to come down a bit earlier. So,
okay.
and then today I was like, oh, let's do a boat tour. And my sister was like, okay, that's great. And I signed us up for a hiking tour. So we did a 12-hour hiking tour today.
12-hour hiking tour.
I think my legs are like melted and bleeding, and I don't know. So the last part of the hike was like in the final loop, and
Right.
I just said, I think I'm gonna hang out here with the kids at the river, and then I'll catch up with you on the back. My sister was like, "What did you sign us up for?"
I
I was
know she's saying you can't sign them up for nothing else. They'll do the planning. You just come along.
She was like, how did this mistake happen? How does a 12-hour boat tour become a 12-hour hike? I was like, I don't know. Maybe there was something lost in the translation. So,
Something was lost. 12-hour
yeah.
hike. I, I'd have turned around a long time ago.
Uh, I don't think we would have known how to get back because we were
Oh,
like 2 hours away from our house as well. So,
oh,
um,
okay. Okay.
and then the guy was trying to sell us on the next hike. And I was like, does he think that we performed well enough in this hike to do
Ugh.
the next one? And the
Right,
next hike
right.
was like 170 kilometers. It was like over a number of days. I was like,
No, no, thank you.
I was like, you do know that I'm not like an athlete for a living.
No,
This
no,
isn't really
no planning by Suzanne no more. Okay, no, you go ahead and do
seriously. My
it. Ugh.
sister came home. She was like, "Oh my gosh, my legs are melting. The muscles are melting." I said, "Oh, so are mine. Don't worry. I'm not doing any better than you." So,
Okay. Well, so what's going on in the market? What you talking about? What you got to do
yeah,
this
so
week?
yeah, this week was we had we had a great week in the Discord. That was nice. The iron are so one of the things that we had a lot of people that like when they were new to the Discord, they felt like I don't know how to kind of, navigate all the discretionary trades that you guys are putting on. And so one of the things that we decided was to try and aim to have a really nice balance 50-50 between systematic trades that people could take every single day and then our discretionary trades. And so some people are only doing the systematic trades. They
Hmm.
don't like the week to week changes or that you have to have a really strong conviction that a particular stock is going to outperform. And so the systematic trades have been really um, performing gangbusters. So my sister has been watching. She's like, you really do this. And I was like, hey, what do you think's been going on for the last years? And then she was like, no, no, no. But she was like, like I'm watching you and you like, you really are
You
doing
really
it.
do
That,
this, yeah.
and
It's
it's
almost
different.
like people got to see you do it to believe that you really do it
Hmm.
because they think in the background, oh no, you got somebody at some bank doing this for you. You're not really doing it.
Yeah, and then to see the returns, I think that's the big thing is like actually seeing that this is real money. It's not just
Right,
like
right, right.
ideas or conceptualizing like if you had done this trade it could have performed like this. She's like, wait a
Right.
minute, this is like actual performance. So it was nice to have her around because normally when my family comes around I don't try to be like actively trading
Yeah,
aggressively, but
right.
because of the move I told her I already took so much time off that I need to be actively
Yeah,
trading. So she's been
yeah.
like, sitting next to me and watching all the trades and looking at all the charts. So she's had a great time hanging out
Okay.
with us. So I think that let's see if we can get Mark on with us and all right. So, yeah, this week in the markets, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I always tell people the markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. So
Right.
even though the markets continue to just be like rolling up on very low volumes and extremely low volatility,
Right.
you have to just respect the positioning. Bank earnings last week were extremely positive, which
Yep.
was something that actually shout out to Zay, who is in the chat. Um, that we talked about that we were expecting positive
Mhm.
commentary from the banks. And, a lot of them had already had significant runs up the
Yes.
last couple of months, like JP Morgan
Yep.
specifically. And, so it was difficult for them to kind of outperform while they've just been consistently outperforming. So, it was nice to see that they did well. They
Hmm.
held their price levels, nicely. So, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it was
I kind of laugh.
positive.
I tell people I've been there now. I've been at JP for 3 years in August, and it's kind of flown by. You don't realize. It's like it goes by fast. But I look at when I first bought stock. When I started at the company. You know,
Hmm.
when it was like $108. Now it's $280 something. And
Yeah,
people
it's
be like,
290, isn't it?
yeah.
Didn't it close at 290?
Yeah, so people be like, how do you get these returns? I'm just like, I have patience, people. I'm not
Hmm.
in a hurry. I'm not I mean I did this a long time ago on the Come Up series with Mark where I told people, 80% of my portfolio is in long term. Okay.
Hmm.
20% I use to trade or swing trade or whatever. That's how I do it. That's what that has worked for me. I found you guys and a few others. You guys out here. I still laugh, Suzanne, when I tell people I sit under you. Yeah, this lady with all the animal names. And they just like, what do you mean by animal? I say, when you get into her Discord, you'll find out. They say, okay, we get it now. And, and and a number of people who have joined it just like they laugh about it. Now, but they didn't understand it when I first told them. I'm like, hey, I didn't understand it either, but I started studying these things.
Hmm.
And I posted, something where I had over 800+% on Nvidia,
Hmm.
and I'm like, guys, but I bought into Nvidia at $18. Like, well, how did you know? I'm just like, I've been in tech my whole life. That's I study that sector. So,
Hmm.
I knew eventually, the chip market, would be, the one, between Nvidia and AMD. Intel had already played out, and Jensen Wong he was the new kid on the block, with all the great stuff around AI
Hmm.
and quantum computing and all this stuff. So um it was just one of them ones where I was just like, what, let me just throw caution to the wind and see what happens. But yeah, I see Zay talk about, yeah, ASML CEO owes us. I can't believe
Yes.
he made that comment. Yeah, he kind of put foot in mouth, so it's
But that's and
unfortunate.
that's a really great, ASML, it totally, it failed. But even in its failure, we still made money because of the
Yeah.
fact that we used a diagonal spread. Okay, we didn't make like gangbusters, billions of
Right.
dollars. Obviously, had
Right.
it performed exactly as we wanted. But, it's another reason why people ask me, you play a lot of earnings. And I said, and I am like, yeah, I'm willing to take because the risk reward is like 1 to 15. And when
Right.
you're right, the returns are just so fantastic. And we saw that this last week with Citigroup or Citibank
Yeah.
and Netflix and some of the others, they performed really well for us. So, it's one of those things where
Right.
you're like, okay, you kind of have to just keep taking the trade because it's working.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
here is
And
our
then
third.
oh,
Yes,
is he on? Is he on? Okay,
yes,
he's
sir.
coming. Yeah, and that other one, I have to give it, to all the young people with Hood and Coin and MSTR. I'm sitting up there like, okay, this Bitcoin thing is out there. It's real. Ah,
Hey
happy
guys.
birthday!
Thank you.
Happy
I
birthday,
know you.
sir.
I know you worn out.
Actually, no, I'm full of energy. Though I had a little bit of a slight little surprise
Oh.
this weekend.
Okay.
I had to take Butter to the animal hospital.
Oh,
Oh.
Um, it happened on my birthday.
wow.
And
Oh.
so we discovered that he has a neurological um, issue that
Mm.
ultimately like pretty much made him dead-legged.
Yeah.
Oh
So we've been trying
no.
to nurse him back
Okay.
from his
Okay.
paralysis. So,
Yeah.
but he's
Oh.
been a trooper and he's been kind of like the person of the party. So, yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
Well.
it's good to hear but that he's doing well, but sorry that you're having to face that. It's, animal people sometimes forget animals can become like the most therapeutic part of your family, especially during, like life seasons. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I remember when our dog died, it was like one of those things where none of us could have expected like how like serious it was going to be, because I mean I didn't have that many like pets growing up. That wasn't my
Right.
parents' thing, being that they're divorced. It was like, what are you going to do, like trek animals back and forth? But Suju, she became like a huge part of our life, and you don't realize how much time goes on with them. So I'm glad that he's doing well, and I hope that you guys are able to get him back to full capacity.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, he's just dealing
Yeah.
with old age because Butter's 14 years old. So,
Yeah. I
Oh.
know.
but
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
what
we
I've
we
been kind
saw
of
some of
dealing
the
with.
videos. We saw some of the videos from the party. Looked like you had a good time.
I did. I
So
had a wonderful time. I did have a wonderful time.
yeah.
I'm glad to be a part of this 40 club. It's time to make it a little interesting. You
Wait, are
know,
you only 40 years old, Mark?
I just turned 40.
Happy 40th. You are young. Oh my gosh.
See, Mark seems like he's been here longer because he's been doing so much since he was in his 20s. I mean,
Right.
so most people be like, "Wait a minute, he's only 40." I'm like,
I know.
"Yeah,
I mean, I thought you were like,
no."
43 or something, or 40. I didn't think you were like 50, but wow, you were
Yeah.
No.
still in your 30s until a couple of days ago. Well, welcome to the 40s. They're better than the 30s, I promise.
Okay. Well,
So welcome
Right.
to
I'm looking
welcome
forward
to
to it.
my club. My club.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Well,
I
thank you guys
see.
for having me.
Yeah, I see a few people in the chat. CLG23. He's one to one. I like I said, I put a post out on Twitter, and then we'll let Mark talk a little bit about the summit and some other things. But I'm like, you can always learn from people younger than you. I'm just like,
Hmm.
just because I've been doing this for, 25, 30 years, I'm like, there's always something new to learn. Okay. There's always something new to look into. Mark has taught me a lot. I've dealt with people who are younger than me. I'm just like, I never would have thought about investing in that company. But let me go do my research, and then I go and say, okay, this makes sense. And back about 3, 4 years ago, during the pandemic when, you know, we were all talking about Bitcoin. Mark really turned me on to Ethereum. Okay, I'm
Hmm.
just, I kind of like what they were doing a little better. And then also I like what the blockchain was doing. Okay. And I'm sitting up here like, well, also Ethereum was a hell of a lot cheaper than trying to jump into Bitcoin at that time, unless you just, had a bunch of money to jump in. But I was just like, you know what, this coin and MSTR and some of these other blockchain companies, I can understand them because they were
Mm-hmm.
engineering companies. Okay. So when I understand it, it makes sense to me. And then here comes Hood out of nowhere. I'm just like, and I remember people used to say, hey, get out of the hood, because it was not the greatest of companies at the time. But
I
it's
think they
turned
took that
out right now.
personally. I think
Huh?
they took that personally and started to reinvest back into the platform, which was smart. So
Bingo. Bingo.
Yeah,
Yep,
Hood
I
has been
agree.
one of our strongest performers this year. And I have to shout out, I'm sure that Global Ricky or something like that. I can't remember his Instagram name. I'm sure he's on here. And I actually met him last year at the summit and he did join the
Hmm.
Discord. And he has been really on top of some great performing stocks and connecting like his thoughts with what's going on with Gamma. I think we've had like 5,000% return with Hood in like all of our positions. So, because
Wow.
now Uncle Charles is learning all of the animals. We had, like goats and donkeys riding on giraffes, and,
It was
voila, they
crazy.
were making golden eggs.
Exactly. I was like, yeah, the lady with the Discord with all the animals. Just follow trade speakeasy. I don't understand them all, but hey, they're out there. But Mark, just give us a little overview of what's going on with the summit, man. Where are we? What's
Yeah.
what, what, what's popping?
yeah, so this year we're going bigger, in the sense of not only just thinking about it as it pertains to audience size a little bit, but also we're challenging ourselves to go even further as it pertains to the subject matter that we're bringing to the stage.
Okay.
So last year was more so in the sense of like for individuals that were fairly new to the market or just wanting to know what was going on in the market, wanting to know what was happening around them as it pertains to entrepreneurship. What is it, what does it look like for the basics? And
Yeah.
so we're building upon that this year. We're going further and heavier. The goal is to build to stay ahead. That's our theme.
Mm,
And so the goal is that we want people to be ahead of the curve versus essentially trying to swim with the curve.
or catch
Um,
up.
yeah, so that's our focus this year. So when we think about things of AI, outside of taking people outside of the world of Chat GPT, Perplexity, Claude, and all those other cool LLMs, but looking at it beyond that, like what's the next frontier? What are the things that are currently happening right now? Who's investing in what? Who's building what? And you get some, the goal is that essentially that we bring some strong insider knowledge within that arena. We also, for the folks that are out there that are entrepreneurs, bringing further venture capital into the building to essentially like give you peeks behind the curtain. What is it that they're investing in? Why is it that they're
Mhm,
investing in what? Um, just a load of different things that are coming out that essentially that we were only able to briefly touch upon last year, but
Okay.
ultimately adding more depth to it. And then on
mhm,
top of that, like, we have some pretty cool things that are coming about where you'll probably be able to even build your startup at the summit, and launch day one, say for
Oh
example,
wow.
starting on a Monday. So, there's some pretty cool things because one of the things I looked at after the summit last year was I got a lot of inquiries from folks that were like, well, Mark, I have this idea, but I need help to build it out. And
Yeah.
so wanted to make that available, to folks as it pertains to how to do that. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. And then of course, giving, my keynote of what to look for, that one's going to be a pretty big doozy. Um, because, for me, this is going to be probably one of the toughest, keynotes that I've ever had to give.
mm,
Um, It's going to be very deep as it pertains to analysis. So, like, you'll have a lot of your questions answered.
mhm,
So that's my goal. I mean,
Okay.
for the folks in whom which that have made money, how is that you ultimately position yourself moving forward? Uh, so yeah, like that's the focus of this year's summit.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
Well, it's very exciting.
Yeah.
And knowing how well I mean, the last summit you had some phenomenal speakers come in and, even then being able to have the follow-up contacts. I mean, for those who are
Yep.
interested, the summit is not just to just come and learn, but, you're really meeting some brilliant people in very unique spaces and being able to connect with them afterwards is really great. So if anybody's thinking about going to the summit, get your tickets. I hope you're not already sold out.
Uh, that's what led us to like literally having to increase capacity a little bit.
Uh-oh.
So for example, I think the VIPs are cold. They were close to selling out, and so we've readjusted some of the tickets for that. Because there is going to be a conversation that's going to be had at the summit where it's VIPs only, unfortunately. It's going to be one of those conversations in which that no phones, no devices, no nothing. I'm I'm not even going to tell you. I won't be telling people who the speaker is because one of the sensitive information that they're going to be giving, what's going to be discussed, and then the advantage that it actually gives the people in the room. That's going to be huge for this year's summit.
Okay.
So that's kind of like that, like there's a lot that's like that's coming at stake for that person to like literally take on such a role to like give that type of knowledge in the room. So that's going to happen, and then some of the workshops that are going to transpire. So yeah, we literally had to increase capacity. We're currently, I think, at the early birds. I think those are like gonna probably sell out, and those are the ones in which that are like giving people like the deep discount. We're
Hmm.
expected to put out the hotel stuff because we actually got Hilton to give us a 50% discount towards hotel
Oh.
stay. So that's pretty cool because sometimes like that actually that's quite unheard of.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so that's amazing. So a lot of those things will come out, and it feels good to not have to do all this on like a lot of the stuff on my own, like I did last
Hmm.
year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like in the sense of like, okay, hey, let's spread the responsibility around. Jolene is spearheading a lot of the stuff, so which makes my
Okay.
job a lot easier.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good. Good. Yeah. So one other thing, Mark, that's kind of been, people been hitting me up about. I know you talked about it a little bit on a couple of them, but look like number one, the IPO market is opening back up again.
it is.
And we're also seeing a lot of people trying to figure out how to invest early in companies that are not
Hmm.
public. So, are these some of the things you may cover at the summit?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, like I'm
Okay,
working with one of the speakers that represents investment banking to
okay,
discuss, some of the things that they're invested into on the equity division side.
yeah,
Um, of course, I'm probably sure that they can't tell you what their book is.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, how to get involved in those. But for folks that are like, the Cliff Notes, the TLDR,
yeah,
Hmm.
pretty much is, you can look at platforms like Forge or Forge Global, I guess that's what they go by these
Hmm.
days.
okay,
Um, they allow you to buy shares pre-IPO before they even hit the IPO market.
Hmm.
right,
So you're most likely buying those shares from somebody that's probably like an employee that has a bunch of RSUs and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, let's see here. And then on top of that, a lot of times people don't realize this, but within your brokerages, right, when a company releases like their
yeah,
S1 to go
Hmm.
public, or I think it's either S1 or K1. I think it's K1
yeah,
to go public. Then essentially it makes its way to the brokerages, and then the brokerages allow you to ultimately allot yourself up to a certain amount of shares if you want to buy those before. I know that
right,
Morgan Stanley does, and I'm probably sure that JP does the same thing.
yeah,
But yeah, that's something that you should check out because a lot of brokerage accounts actually have pre-IPO centers if
yeah,
you're
Hmm.
looking to jump in before the company, like, and that's typically about a month before the company probably hits it. It just depends upon what their listing is.
right, right. Makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
But yeah,
great.
we will probably definitely be talking about the IPO market and how that's heating up.
Yeah,
And, because honestly, we're in a situation right now where you're looking at the current existing equities, where it's like a lot of them have just gotten so expensive.
oh my
Hmm.
God,
And
you telling
so
me?
And the thing is, though, it's something to be mindful of, though, because of the fact that some of the liquidity for some of these companies that are going IPO, it's because of the fact that they have no other alternative anymore.
Right.
So
Right.
either they have to go public, or they are either that, or they're just making more than enough revenue to be able to sustain themselves without ever having to go public.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, like they're probably in the places in which that they've done X amount of debt rounds now. And
Mm-hmm.
so now those debt rounds are probably close to maturity, and which means that essentially that they probably have to go to the IPO market and ultimately
Mhm.
release those shares from investors that have been in lockstep for quite some time.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Got it.
we're now at that point. So I think maybe I should do an episode one day of like, how to determine, a healthy company that's going
Mhm.
IPO versus a
Yes.
company that is distressed that is choosing to go
Mhm.
IPO. Um,
Yeah.
because all IPOs aren't
Mhm.
created equal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
actually going to be my question. So if you're going to do an episode on it, I think that it'll be very well watched because I think a lot of, I mean, even just, the like just core weave recently, like people, that wanted to get in, then it like, the price shot up so fast that then people
Yep.
were like, oh, this thing is going to come back to us. And then, people were losing money on shorts like crazy,
Yep.
and then people were just constantly shocked by the activity of CoreWeave. And so, people want to know how to prepare, but there's this embedded ideology that, you IPO, you get a mad rush in the price, and then all the previous people are like dumping their stock because now they're finally free to close up some of their positions that they've been holding since maybe time immemorial. And um and so people are always waiting for that pullback. But the thing is that we're in such a debasement cycle now that there's not often a very good a very good pullback on much of anything these days. I mean, it's not even just happening. CoreWeave is kind of an extreme example, but
Right.
even looking at just equities, everybody's like, everything is overbought, everything is overextended, but people don't realize, we're still doing a type of quantitative easing, even though we haven't cut rates.
Hmm.
We're not doing any major long bond auction. So we're sticking with the short-term T-bills, which provides a kind of liquidity. We're not doing
Hmm.
any quantitative tightening for sure.
Hmm.
And, there was a lot of money sitting on the sidelines that freaked out on the April pullback and, haven't
Mm.
the tariff situation, and they still haven't gotten in, or they got in super late. So things are continuing to squeeze, and people are just ready for some kind of pullback or turnaround, and
I
they're
believe it's
just not
coming.
getting it.
I believe it's coming though. Like, so there was a lot to unpack there.
Yes,
So
sorry.
let's see if I can unpack some of it
So
for the
core
folks
we
that are
how to
watching.
get into the non-pullbacks.
Yeah, so for example, the reason why we see stocks naturally like pop like that is because of the fact that there's no trading volume there's no buy and sell that's
Hmm.
typically happening when a company is going public. So normally you're just taking in orders.
Hmm.
It's very rare in occasions where you have folks that are selling.
Hmm.
Unless, like, for example, like, because most shares, when you normally go public, there's a lockup period of about 180
Hmm.
days,
Yeah.
in which that the stock is locked up. Now, if they have no lockup period, or if they do it in 30 or 90 days, then you can definitely see some reactions within the stock. But most of the time, you have 180 days until the first lockup tranche ultimately is
Hmm.
released. Um, and naturally, after IPO week, IPO companies are naturally the worst stocks to like literally expect to see sizable return. And the
Hmm.
reason being behind that is because of the fact that the stocks that you normally see that rip and run are the stocks that ultimately have coverage. So
Hmm.
where Wall Street has picked up coverage or investment banks have picked up coverage on the stock, whether buy, sell, or hold, whatever the rating is, the fact that they picked up coverage of the stock. So there's that part, and then of course you have your Black Rocks and your S
Hmm.
and P, your State Streets and all those other folks that are ultimately buying in, just for holdings purposes. But you know we see this massive amount of buying, volume or an X amount of buying volume that takes place in an IPO stock. And then essentially it's like, okay, hey, well, you could probably have investment banks who are not tied to those same lockup rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, which means that essentially a bank is there just to say, okay, hey, we're here just to cover you maybe for the first day. We're here to prop up the stock up to a certain dollar value. Like the best way to put it is for folks to do a homework lesson, go check out Meta's day of their week of IPO.
Mm-hmm.
Meta's week of IPO was horrid. I remember watching that one,
Mm-hmm.
like tick by tick, play by play.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the investment banks that were on the hook for that. It cost them a lot of money to prop up the stock because of the fact that there was a lot of sell side pressure on the stock because valuation was just like it just wasn't believable at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine back then $100 billion company was looked at like kind of like the same way we look at $1 trillion company or now a $4 trillion company. And so essentially the stock struggled, but then there was like you saw that the stock never pushed past a certain price. And that
Mm-hmm.
was because of the fact that the underwriters were propping the stock. Once when they fulfilled their agreement towards the underwriting of the stock tanked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it sold off like it's like water rolling down a hill.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing that we got to look at, and then the reason why I say like, be careful. I always tell people to be careful of like IPO stocks. Don't try to trade them. Like just more so in the
Mhm.
sense that those are like opening positions to hold and own
Mm-hmm.
for a future. Like say for example, companies like Reddit or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because of the fact that again, it's like it's going to take time. They've got to show that essentially like, okay, hey, that there's still revenue growth and everything else is different from showing your K1 filings and everything else versus now that you're publicly traded. Now it's like you're in the big market with everybody else. So
Mm-hmm.
there's that part. Um, are you guys seeing any of the comments in here, by the way? Because like
Yeah,
mine,
I am.
like it shows, can you see
Mm-hmm.
Suzanne? Because I don't see her.
Well,
Oh.
Suzanne's video is off. It's just
Oh.
spinning right now, but I see you, I see me, and I can see the
Okay.
comments. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
sad.
because mine was like I literally had a glitch effect that just showed up on my Instagram. So I'm like, this could possibly be iOS 26. So I just like take it all in
Okay.
Yeah.
stride.
Can you
Uh,
guys see me now?
no.
No, no.
Oh, that's
It's just spinning. I
Okay.
figure you were in a bad internet spot
oh,
since
that's
you
terrible.
moved to Albania.
Um. Okay. So with that being said, you probably like, if you're buying a stock at its IPO, just know that you're buying it and with the expectation that you're probably going to be holding it from anywhere from 12 months to roughly
Yeah.
36 months before it even picks up any significant coverage of the stock. Now, it doesn't mean that this like, so naturally, like historically, stocks at IPO, like after their first week, they go on to like literally have the worst performance like post
Mhm.
IPO
Yeah.
at least for that year. And then after that, they typically have what is called the recovery period, which is they recover back up if they're doing well or whatever it may be, they recover back up. And essentially then it's like when they pick up covers and they're taking off.
Right.
But like you're in a place now where it's like valuations count versus when you were non-public, valuations were like, meh, we're just more so
Yeah.
focused towards the growth, the revenue growth, those things, but we're not really focused on valuation. Now, when you get to the IPO market, it's different because now
Yeah.
you're raising public money. You're raising public money. As it pertains to like, we're seeing the whole market like just do its thing and just be risk on. I think that we're in a Tina situation for sure, where there is
Mhm.
no
Right.
alternative.
Yeah.
Like for example, bonds are, where they're at. I mean, you could make an argument for, let's say, crypto in the short
Hmm.
term sense. Um, but and it's like I'm looking at crypto and I'm looking at the dollar and I'm noticing that they're inversing each other. So which is very,
Yeah.
very interesting. Like,
Yeah.
are we using crypto as a hedge or as an inverse to the US dollar? That could be
Right.
very, very telling. Um, yes, we're in like it does kind of like look like a quantitative easing-ish environment, but keep in mind, Wall Street is typically undefeated when it comes to like when we get to these summer months. When we start to
Right.
see vacation, we start to see volume come down.
Yeah.
And as we start to see volume come down, then essentially we start to see volatility go up.
Yep.
And I think that we're in that place. Like, the fact is that nobody's talking about how much shares Jeff Bezos is unloading from
Yeah.
Amazon. Jensen
I
Mm-hmm.
Huang
saw
just
that.
sold. Jensen Huang just sold some shares. I think it was like
Yeah.
12.6. Nothing like this, nothing Jeff Bezos-esque, but
Yeah.
still like
Yeah.
sold. And then on top of that, you have some of the other players in the game that are also probably in that point of like selling off shares and
Yeah.
within the company. So I think that we're reaching that point where it's like the market's going to face that exhaustion. We see a lot of valuations that have driven up going into earnings. And I guess the best way to look at it is like though that Netflix had a blockbuster earnings up 16% in revenue growth.
That
You
was
know,
crazy.
that's crazy. But at the same token, the stock retreated by like I think it was like
Yes.
2%, ended down maybe
Right.
1% by the end of the day.
Right.
Um, but again, I think it's just showing you that right there is showing you the cracks. That
Yeah.
essentially that the exhaustion is very, very real within the market. Like there's only so much that a person is going to gobble up and buy and say, okay, hey, well, I've added this into my portfolio until the fact that your portfolio starts looking overweight.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I think that that's where we're at, where it's like we're probably going to start seeing some of the trimming of the overweight portfolios that need to be
Yeah.
rebalanced. So I think that we're
So
coming close to that going into August.
yeah, you got someone asking about my old faithful Apple. What's going
Mm-hmm.
on with Apple? And yeah, what's your
Yeah, so
thoughts
I
on
think
Apple?
my thoughts on Apple is pretty much, I mean, solid growth and or solid earnings is not really
Right.
the thing right now. The reason why Apple is like literally hurting right now because it was a race to the $4 trillion valuation between them and Nvidia and Microsoft.
Yep.
And I think that when Apple didn't portray itself in the best light to the developer community at WWDC,
Yep.
that let people know that okay, hey, yeah, we're a player within this space. You need to, recognize we're here.
Yeah.
I think that put Apple in a precarious situation in the sense that, honestly, again, it's not the stock that you trade, it's the stock that you hold. But at the same
Exactly.
token, it's like, there's other things that are like literally catching people's attention right now.
Right.
And
Right.
so like Apple, like I think a lot of investors out there are saying, hey, I can sell some of my Apple since I've been holding on into it for X amount of time just to ride and get some of the alpha from some of these other companies
Mm-hmm.
Right.
that look attractive for the moment, which also led towards, say, for example, Nvidia and some of the other chip stocks going up to their record highs.
Yep.
Um, but I think that, every company, every sector has its moment in the sun. And I think that
Yep.
anything that's AI related, that's also showing strong artificial intelligence participation within the market, I think that they're going to be rewarded right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that's going to be the question that ultimately the market's going to ask. And I think that the question is like when there's so many questions that surround a company and there's not enough answers, then I think that ultimately puts the risk at a high, not super duper
Yeah.
high, because of course it's Apple, but at the same
Yeah.
token, it's still a high, given in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that, okay, trade wars,
Yep.
tariffs, then on top of that, non-AI player
Yep.
significantly within the game,
Yeah.
that's major.
Yeah.
So again, if I'm an investor, I'm probably, and if growth is where I'm looking at,
Yeah.
Apple may not be on my playlist right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just I've just been in Apple so long, the dividends and the stuff that I get
Right.
out of it, it just makes sense. Okay,
It does make
Mm-hmm.
sense.
yeah, you're right.
But
When they didn't have a story about AI, now they're talking about maybe partnering with somebody. Okay, I'm
yeah,
like,
Mm-hmm.
how can you be Apple and not have a AI play? I don't
well,
Mm-hmm.
understand that.
keep in mind though, like don't don't sleep on Apple.
I'm not.
Because
I'm not.
like
Yeah.
here's the thing that like here's a little dirty little secret that we know of in the tech world that and when I say like we in the tech world know, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that everybody in the tech world knows this,
Right.
but the folks in whom which that have done deals, the folks that have done M&A, participated in M&A, like those types of individuals,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
when you've
Right.
been a part of that game, then this is a whole different, you start to look at it in the sense of,
Right.
yo, this is a
Mm-hmm.
whole different type of sport.
Yeah.
Oh, did I lose the
And
sound for Mark?
no, I should still be here.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, we got
Okay.
you.
Yeah, so like it's more like you're playing JV, I'm playing varsity, or I'm actually in the
Right.
Mm-hmm.
pros.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
so this is the game. This is the dirty secret.
Yeah,
Apple, given in the sense that they don't have a strong position, is probably looking at who they can acquire right now.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about that. Yeah,
Apple's probably sitting back and saying, "Hey, we bring in about 80 to roughly $100 billion every 3 months.
yep, yep.
Let's get cozy to some of the companies and see who is it that they're playing with. Who is it that like,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that are happening within their space? And then
Right.
essentially let's acquire them quietly. Because here's the crazy thing. Outside of the massive deals in which that like brought a lot of marketing and fanfare as it pertains to lead towards products like Beats, that's a whole
Yeah,
product.
right.
Outside of that, Apple makes a ton of acquisitions that
Yeah,
nobody talks about.
talks about.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's a lot of acquisitions that transpire that just fly underneath the hood that
Yeah,
nobody pays attention to or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. So like for example, Apple for all we know could be making acquisitions of about like let's say 50 companies and you
yeah.
wouldn't even know it.
You won't know
Hmm.
it.
And
Yeah,
a lot of
And
those
so
companies, if they're competitors, they're just squashing them out of the market. So, if there is somebody that would do it, could do it better right now, and they have any aspirations to be in that space, they're going to make sure that, they position themselves well to be able to acquire those companies, acquire the IP, but then not let those companies like run too far ahead. But from a
well,
gamma perspective, I just think that, the problem that Apple has is that at 190 to get to that 250 level, which seems to be where everybody is aiming for it to squeeze up to, needs to do something, say something that is going to give it, because to move $60 from 190 to the 250 is requires some kind of action, right? Like some kind of
all you
friction
have to do
in the
all you would have to do
conversation.
all you would have to do is literally tell the market that hey, we're gonna go compete against Google for home devices.
ah, yeah,
Mm,
You don't
yeah,
even need to participate in AI. Like if Apple came out with a HomePod with a screen, this game is over.
yeah, yeah.
Like the game is over. If Apple literally said that, okay, like people are already excited for the Apple CarPlay update, and Apple's making a move as it pertains to getting into more OEMs. It's just not going to solidify this year. Though
mm,
that we're already seeing them participate, but we're not going to see that happen until probably mid 2026.
Right,
So,
right.
but if Apple comes out like says like, okay, hey, well, we got one more thing for you and we're going to present to you like the new and improved HomePods that gives you the same things that you love about music, but at the same token, we're going to give you, display and
mhm,
take
Yeah,
that same CarPlay display tech, but then put it into, let's say, into a home-based device. So now you have Apple competing truly against Alexa and Google
mhm,
and some of the other players. Well,
right.
now this creates a whole different ball game and conversation and everything else in which that, okay, hey, well, Apple now has to say, all right, well, what do we do here? What does that do as it pertains to adding towards market cap, as it pertains to
mhm.
home devices?
Okay.
Because we already ruled the devices. See, look at that. Google not even minding its own business. Um, but it's interesting because of the fact is that if they did a play like that, nobody would even be talking about AI. They would
Right.
have no that like they wouldn't care.
Mm,
Um, I think that we look at Apple, like, and this is where I'm looking at Apple with a whole different set of lenses now. Lenses. Um, and the reason why I say that is because of the fact that Apple is not a growth tech company. It's just not.
Mm,
Like none of those growth tech companies could like literally like none of them make the same type of revenue as Apple on a consistent basis. So
mhm,
no. What is it like Apple like tells you exactly where who its customer is and who its most important customers are.
right.
They do it every single year. The most important customer for Apple is not even the people who buy the iPhones anymore. It's not the individuals that buy the iPhones or iPads on a consumer level. It's not. Because if that was the case, like for example, if education was the case, Apple was once upon a time in Apple education. They got out.
Yep.
So they don't care. It's not that they don't care, but it's just like that's just not their focus. Apple realizes that the money to be made is in the developer community.
Hmm.
because by them providing such a great experience towards the developer community and becoming the utilitarian company, like you ask any software developer, and or if you go into a room full of software engineers or software developers, what devices are they building their software on? Macs.
Yeah.
It's weird to see somebody who writes software and they use a Windows PC. Not saying that it's not possible, but it's
Yeah.
just weird.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like when you think about anybody who does anything creative, it's weird to see somebody doing anything creative and like on a Windows PC.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I think that those are the things in which that are the primary stakeholders, which ultimately leads towards the moat in which that we know of as it pertains to the App Store.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Somebody
that's the
asked.
primary thing. Go
Somebody
ahead.
asked, why does it seem like Trump has it out for Tim Cook, while Jensen now is his new buddy?
Jensen, I promise you, Jensen is not his buddy. I think Jensen is ultimately sounding the alarm and ultimately is giving everybody the reality check. I think that Apple is just at the point where they're just too big, and I think that that's the reason why DC is kind of like beefing a little bit with Apple because of the fact
Yeah.
is that you can't really touch Apple.
Right.
Like if Apple moves their entire business to let's say
Oh.
Europe.
Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. Yes.
Like now they're closer towards their manufacturing and everything else. If Apple says that, hey, that we're going to do this, that's a massive upset to the US GDP.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
like, you got to get past the lip service and fanfare and everything else, and outside of the words of what one person says.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing anything that changes policy and everything else in legislation that ultimately hinders Apple, you ain't saying nothing to me. You just talking.
Yeah. Yeah. If
Mm-hmm.
Apple or Microsoft was to do something like that, man,
It's
boy,
over.
it would rock the world. Yeah. It would
I'll give you a
definitely.
prime. I'll give you a prime example. Boeing moved its headquarters from Washington State to Chicago.
Yeah.
Boeing
Yeah.
was founded here in Washington State.
Right.
They
Mm-hmm.
moved their headquarters and everything to Chicago. That sent some shockwaves here
Yeah.
in
Mm-hmm.
Washington State. It
Of
Mm-hmm.
impacted
course.
Washington State.
Right.
It's not
Right.
to say
Right.
that they're
Right.
still not like they didn't still hire people here,
Right.
but
Mm-hmm.
yet it had a massive impact. Best other example that I can use, look at Tesla leaving California to
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
set up shop in Texas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Those now that's just domestic. Now
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
take what I just gave you as an example, and those companies aren't as big
No.
as say for example Apple.
Apple. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now take something like that and then put it on a international standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
If Apple says, "Hey," because the majority of its cash is sitting over there in Ireland anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean, so let's just say if they moved out and said, "Okay, hey, well, yeah, we'll still sell our devices here, but we'll move
Yeah.
all of our main operations outside the country." Then what say ye?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. And Ireland has a much nicer relationship with India and some of those other countries for developers and so forth than the United States and some of their visa capacity issues that are now going on. Um, but okay, so, with Apple, the thing is that it's such a legacy stock, right? And it's
Yep.
like it's had its splits, it's had its moves, it's now, paying a dividend. But for people that don't own 100 or in the 100 multiples of Apple stock. The question is this the entry price that they should be getting in at?
Um, I mean, personally, I think that there's other players. I mean, if you want to like participate in
Hmm.
those, because like yeah, the thing about it, Apple has a long-standing history. Now, you can add some exposure to that to your portfolio for sure. I mean,
Right.
what we
Right.
what we're just talking about right now is just like, we're literally
Hmm.
having watershed talk right
Hmm.
Yep.
now and just a
Yeah.
bad year for Apple. That's like literally
Yeah.
Hmm.
saying the best, you know, the the best company in the world is no longer the best company in the world just because of the fact that they have a bad year. Like
Hmm.
Right.
they're just having a bad year. Like this just
Yeah.
isn't their year. But yet at the same token, the thing that still remains is I don't see anybody running to Google Chromebooks or Windows devices to build,
No.
applications on. I don't see any of that transpiring. And it's even
Right.
Hmm.
crazier in a world in which that we're seeing AI like so heavily talked about. Nothing is still replacing the fact that people are still going to be buying Apple devices to still
Yeah.
run those same AI applications and everything else and do all those things on Apple devices. So,
Yeah.
I think, like I said, Apple has become more of the new utility company,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
or infrastructure or industrial company, in which
Mm-hmm.
that essentially that like everything that you think about is built upon, say, for example, the foundation that Apple has
Mm-hmm.
set forth.
Right.
Um, and that's just something
So,
that you won't be able to escape. So if you're looking at elsewhere, right? That's when those IPO companies literally start to come into fruition. That's when you start to look at some of the new tech companies that are
Yeah.
looking to, they won't be able to unseat Apple, but they're looking to make plays in which that they're making waves within the market. To essentially, those are the companies that you can go on and say, okay, hey, I'm going to hold those.
mhm.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the big thing is now is that you have so many new people that are coming into the markets and people that maybe for many years didn't understand how to manage their own retirement account or didn't want to. And now, oh, we
Uh-oh.
lost Mark. But can you actually see me again, or is it
Nope.
still,
Nope. It's
gosh,
just spinning. Yeah.
it's so weird.
Seems like your internet is just spinning right now. But yeah.
Oh, um, yeah, so I think that we're just at this kind of point where, especially like younger generation, new graduates that are finding it really difficult to find a job, they're definitely in a situation where they're trying to participate, whether that's, because they can't participate through a 401k, they can't participate
Yeah.
through,
We're
welcome
back
back,
now.
Mark, since you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
see me. And this is so hilarious. I don't understand.
Yeah.
What do
But
you call it?
Suzanne,
But
you kind of
mhm,
hit on something, real quick, talk about, young people not being able to find jobs. It's kind of funny. Mark and I talked about this about 3 years ago. And it was like, look, the world is changing. Okay. You have to change with it. Okay,
mhm,
even for me, somebody who's been in tech for 30 years, okay, it's like I have had to change in order to stay relevant. Okay,
mhm,
you go from a full stack developer, to I'm doing cybersecurity now. All right, and I've had to educate myself. I'm still educating myself, but we look at this world of cyber now, and I laugh about the last time when Mark and them had the summit and the whole thing happened with CrowdStrike. I,
mhm,
I was sitting up here like, wow, this is real. Okay, and if people didn't think that it was real, it is. I look at how many employees. Now we're talking about. I'm going to talk about J.P. Morgan, and we are. People say, "Oh, you're a bank." Okay, the number of cybersecurity engineers in that company is unbelievable. I had
mhm,
no clue of the massiveness. Now I understand why. I mean, you're moving $11 trillion a day. Okay, you're touching people's money and things that that you wouldn't expect because you don't think about it. Because most people just go, "Oh, I'm going to the bank." Okay, you don't think about what it really means in the world of uh, you're the largest bank and you're bigger than the next three competitors put together. Okay, when that
mhm,
information came out. So, Mark talked about ML. He talked about AI. He talked about all these things. Like I said, about 2, 3 years ago. Like, look, if you got children going into college now, okay, if you want to go into business, that's fine. You want to go into law, doctor, that's fine. Okay, but if you're going into tech, you gotta say, okay, what's the new tech that's coming out, or
mhm,
you will become obsolete real quick.
mhm,
And unfortunately that's what's happening with some of these people who started their education 3, 4 years ago, who are coming out in something that, I'm sorry, we don't need that right now. Mark,
mhm.
can you talk about this whole vibe development and what's going on? I mean,
Oh,
people
you're talking about
look.
vibe coding?
Yes.
So pretty much it's like people using AI or AI services and tools to ultimately
Yeah.
build or to code. Jensen Huang spoke about it a while back. I think he spoke about it last year at his last year's keynote, where he mentioned that pretty much like, it's going to be interesting as we see the world change, where people won't even have to go to college to even, pick up.
Yes.
They won't even have
Mhm.
to learn software engineering stacks and everything else. I still believe that you still
Right.
need to know certain things within engineering, of course, but not as much as you once did. I guess I'll let the cat out of the
Right.
bag a little bit. So,
Hmm.
one of the things that we're working on is for the summit is that for the weekend, if you're there at the summit, one of the companies that we're looking to partner with is actually going to provide free AI, their AI tools for you to build whatever ideas that you have for free for the entire weekend. So you can build as many ideas.
Wow.
If you have a cookbook of ideas and everything else, you'll be given X amount of like it's like 20 million tokens or something like that. That's like 5 apps that you can build
Wow.
for free. And then essentially like, like keep doing what you're doing. Like look at what's happening at Meta. Like X amount of their code is written by AI.
Hmm.
And you're seeing it across multiple other, industry, other companies within the industry as well. You know, those things are happening in front of our faces right now as we speak. So,
Yeah.
you know, so um, the reason why
Okay.
I say that is because of the fact that, one of the things I'm looking at is undergraduates that have come out. Like, so we just had a bunch of
Yeah.
college kids that graduated this year,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Well, a bunch of them are going to be unemployed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
the unemployment rate. Somebody needs to check it because if somebody can like check it and put it in the chat. Um, so what's happening is undergraduate and postgraduate unemployment is way higher than the actual unemployment
Yeah.
rate now of the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
and it's
almost
and it
double.
and
It's the
and it's
highest
growing
sector.
and it's
Hmm.
growing. And the reason being is because a lot of those degrees in which that people have received, just it's going to be a challenge to literally say that they literally make everybody competitive within the market. Now, of course, we're at the same token, we're coming to a close of phase one within the AI hype cycle for large language models and all this other stuff. But look at how powerful like the large language models have entered the chat. And it's like the masses got access to this back in 2021, 2022. And here we
Yeah.
are 3 years later. Here we are. So just within a 3 year span, look at what's happened to the market. Now,
Hmm.
I won't blame it all on AI also. I think it also is in the sense that a lot of companies were spending. I mean, if you look at, say, for example, Microsoft is cutting back from its data center
Yeah.
spend. Um, and so, like, a lot of companies are having to reel in and cut back on expenses because of the fact that, some of them are weary for the what's coming, the road ahead. And I'll be
Hmm.
talking about, like I said, this is going to be one of the hardest conversations that I'm going to have to give at the summit, but I feel like it's warranted to do it because of the fact is it's time to have the conversation. Like it's time to
Hmm.
start planning for it. Um,
And
and
I
I,
can attest to this because, one of the things it's funny, a couple months back, a- an organization that works with unemployed college graduates, they joined the Discord and they started like doing the systematic trades that we've been putting out to see how they perform. And one of the things now they're looking to give grants to new graduates that can't find jobs to just get them trading, get them in, a $5,000, $10,000 account, get them into the, systematic trades so that at least they're making some kind of income with the main aim that they can at least get themselves to the $6,000 a year to be able to contribute to their Roth. Because if people cannot contribute to any kind of tax diverted investment account, I mean, you're really kind of like, uh, like a snake eating its own tail because if you're making any money, you're not making enough money to cover any of your expenses. If you have any debts, interest rates are sky high. But then to also lose entire years of participation in any kind of, well, there is no 401k if you don't have a job. So, the Roth is really your only opportunity, or I mean, from what I understand in the American system, that it is really one of your few opportunities to get into a tax diverted account. And, it's this kind of thing that you have to be ready to change, and you have to be willing to, an area where people were years back saying, oh, that was way too risky. These people now are willing to say, you know what, at least there's an equal opportunity to entry, because to do any kind of investing or trading, you don't have to have a college degree. You just need to find somebody that can help mentor you, that knows what they're doing. And I think that those areas are going to continue to become more popular, but you have to find a window for yourself to be at least productive enough that you can at least continue to invest in any kind of tax diverted account. And Trump has pointed to this by creating the child, whatever the like in Europe. But in Europe they had this, right? They've had this for like 30 years now, that the day you're born, that children get like $2,000 or $3,000 in a tax diverted account. They're not allowed to remove any of the cash till they turn 18. But what people didn't realize is that the money wasn't invested. So if you never invested the cash, you just lost on inflation. And, there's, at least in the US, they're going to at least try. I think the aim is to actually invest on behalf of the children who
Yeah.
are born in this 4 years. But I mean, all in all, it's the same kind of, conversation. When are people starting? When are parents starting to get their kids exposure into the markets? And like these days, I've now got my 6-year-old and my 8-year-old sitting down next to me when I'm trading at least 2 hours a day. And I tell them, you got to learn this. One day I won't be able to do it anymore. You have to invent the new idea. So you need to have that like baseline. But it all goes back to, do I think my children can find a job in like 10 years from now? Do I think that that's going to be something that's easy for them? I don't
Can
know. I
I?
don't know. Does it get any easier?
Can I? Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
man, I'm gonna give you guys. I'm gonna give you guys a teaser for the summit.
Tell us, tease us, sir.
I I could tell by the way he was looking.
hmm I thought he was getting all kinds of upset and excited at the same time.
Actually, I'm not upset or excited. I'm actually more so scared.
Yeah.
Mm,
Um, and like, if I'm scared, then I
Ooh.
know that people are probably going to be.
Ooh.
I don't know what that is for everybody else.
Yeah.
Um, but I see a storm coming.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
I see a massive storm coming over the horizon. And, you're talking about like, okay, hey, in 10 years, will they be able to get a job? Let's, I'll just, Let me just paint the picture. You got baby boomers that are out there that are still clinging on to jobs because of the fact, not because of the fact that they want to, but sometimes a vast majority of them have to. Because of
hmm
the fact is like, look at what's happening within Social Security. Now, this is just within the US alone. I mean, but like, a lot of the jobs, like, for example, why is it that Europe isn't a place of innovation? It's not. It doesn't mean that people can't innovate. It's just the thing is just that the resources and everything else just aren't there as it pertains to infrastructure. They're trying to
hmm
build it, but essentially that they waited too long and they missed out on so many boats that essentially it's like, okay, hey, they're at a huge disadvantage. I
hmm
mean, China has literally like started to like take over Africa, like
hmm
in multi different facets. I mean, let's remove all the shenanigans that are happening here in the US. So you got a baby boomer population that literally sits at the top of as it pertains to leadership in most of your Fortune 500 or most of your companies, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then on top of that, it's like you have real estate, which most of the folks can't even afford to like literally buy or even make a
hmm
down payment into because why? They're landlocked into a lot of those college loans that essentially that they're having to pay. Now let's fast forward. A lot of times people are ultimately buying cars and they're making payments of anywhere from what would have been, respectful, would have been probably paying about $300 to roughly $600 a month. Now they're paying, anywhere from $1,000 to almost $1,500 a month. Then
hmm
on top of that, you also have like the folks in whom which that want to find housing but not getting paid enough. They have to make three times the rent. Can't afford that. So
Yep.
then now what you have is multi-generational housing that is coming into play. And like honestly, a lot of folks within the Asian community, they've done that very, very well. And a lot of times people have scoffed about having multiple people in the same houses, but yet au contraire, they've done it very, very well because they realize, okay, hey, we stack our money, and then ultimately when one person's ready to leave, then they
Yep.
ultimately go into the next house, and essentially
Yep.
other family members can live in that house, and ultimately it makes it cheaper over time. And what I
Yep.
mean by going to live in that house, they are able to buy those houses cash. So let's
Yeah.
just put
Mm-hmm.
that out there. Then on top of that, you also have, say, for example, let's say if I do buy a house, currently interest rates are terrible. So now you have this influx within the market where baby boomers that want to get out but can't get out. And then on top of that, it's like you have folks that want to get in but can't get in. And then if baby boomers leave the market, then what does that do to jobs? Because we're probably going to see some of those jobs shrink as it pertains to what is it that they offer. And then on top of that, like I said, you have this high unemployment from like post grad, like undergraduate and graduate students, which they're not getting hired right now. Like these, like where in what world would you see people applying for 200 to roughly 500 jobs and not even getting a single callback? Like, we can blame some of this on inflation. Yeah, that played a role, but at the same token, the infrastructure has changed and nobody has ultimately told people what the new rules are.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's just me like setting the stage as it pertains to where we currently are right now in
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah.
So when
No.
you sit back and ask me like, okay, hey, well, what will it look like in 10 years? It's kind of like that guy like on Newsweek, the TV show Newsweek, and they were asking like, is America still the greatest country in the world? And it's like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Well, I
You,
I'm
mean,
I'm I'm
you
even
legit
know.
I'm legit saying I don't know. And ultimately what I'm seeing, like I said, I'm scared. I'm
Yeah.
Mhm.
scared because of the fact is like, for the folks that can't get out, for the folks that like can't afford, like for the folks in whom
Mhm.
which that don't have these things, like, even if you're working at a tech company and you think you consider yourself safe, you're not.
No.
Mhm.
You're
Well,
not.
There are,
this is
It's
even
go
kind of.
ahead.
something today. I told Uncle Charles that my sister came to visit, and we ended up in this funny situation because we're in Albania, and of course we don't speak Albanian. And I thought we signed up for a 12-hour boat tour, and we didn't. We signed up for a 12-hour hike. And with with a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old, that was
Y'all need to read that fine print.
ooh. And but one of the things is that, so I didn't know this, that Albania, I always thought Albania was part of Yugoslavia, and it never was. It was always its own country. But because of the fact that we're right now at the Montenegrin Albanian border, part of our hike this was looking at new villages that are being built up, and they're from the children of Albanians who, like, so Christian Albanians who fled from the south of Albania to the north of Albania, then into Yugoslavia to like flee from persecution, and then ended up in the United States. So now they're like, their children are relocating back to Albania to repopulate these towns that literally had like five, five, six families still living in them. But all the houses were like these massive villas, like eight
Mhm.
bedroom to 15-bedroom villas. And who were they all? They're all Albanians that had moved to America. And I was asking them, what did you used to do? Cleaners, drivers, really simple jobs, but they saved their money. They just see themselves that they have no future in America. So they're like coming back to Albania, building these gorgeous lives in the like Balkan mountains. It's just it's untapped natural beauty, and they can do anything here because all the opportunities exist. And I think that America is going to start finding that a lot of people who relocated to the United States because of all of these hopes and dreams, and their children are finding out, actually, this is all kind of BS. And I can move anywhere. Because I have now an American passport, I can move back to where I'm from. And you're seeing this. We're seeing it in Montenegro. We're seeing it in Albania. I'm sure those are like not the only countries in the world where, I mean, honestly, like the US dollar is still very strong here.
Yeah.
It's still extremely inexpensive. You can buy a villa here that you can't even buy an apartment in the United States. And I think
Right.
that's going to, that's, it's people that have the opportunity to do that are going to start taking those chances. The problem is for people that are quote unquote landlocked, that somehow for whatever reason they are, trapped, they're like trapped in that American system, and then they don't even have the psychological well-being of being able to say, if things don't work out here, I can do this other thing, because actually there is no other thing for those people. And it, like you said, it's terrifying. I can imagine if I didn't think to myself, oh, I can just pick up all of my things and move to Albania tomorrow, because that's just what crazy idea I would have. But for people that are like third, fourth generation and don't have family living somewhere else and haven't lived in a third country and feel stuck to the system, I mean, they're facing these problems in a very real way of how to pay their debts, how to get out of things. But then you hear the earnings reports from Bank of America and JP Morgan and Citibank, and they're like, people are doing great. We're seeing all the transactions, and people are doing
But
good. And
but
it's like, okay.
Suzanne, you gotta look at who their customers are.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Like
exactly.
that's
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing that, like, a lot of times people look at companies and they're like, oh, well, their company is me, or like their customer is me. No, it's not. Like,
No,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about JP Morgan wealth management and private wealth banking. Like,
Yeah.
right,
you're probably bringing in a solid $5 to $10 million at
right,
base.
right.
Not to say like if you bring in a little bit lower, that's fine, but I mean we're talking about like $5 to $20 million at entry. And
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, those customers are doing very, very good. Like
yeah,
they're doing great.
yeah,
They're in great hands. They're in great positioning. I'm talking about
right.
for the folks in whom which that are 5 million to, like, for that, let's say, that are $4 million and lower.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna start feeling some type of pain.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you brought down taxes, but then that's also going to raise inflation.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Mark. There was a thing they showed where I think in 2019, a $500,000 house would be like 1,900 a month. Now it's like 2,900 a month or whatever, and a
Wow.
lot of people have jumped into those houses at 6.6% interest, thinking that in 6 months that the interest rates were going to come
And
down,
it's not, and they're
and it's
stuck.
not
Mm-hmm.
coming down.
And
And
now we
now
see
those
foreclosures on the rise.
foreclosures are on the rise. People are selling the houses at a loss just to get
Yep.
out of them.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they're selling them to people, who actually own large companies. Large companies are going in, buying these houses, and now
Yep.
they're renting them out, to
Yep.
people or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And it's different. You're right. They were showing where Ireland, they're offering Americans 90 grand just to move to Ireland
Just to
now.
move to Ireland.
Yeah, please
Mm-hmm.
move here. Come help
And
us
keep in
build
mind,
our. Yeah,
they don't do that because of the fact that business is booming. They're doing that to spur the economy so that way it can get
exactly,
booming.
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Like
And the
that's like,
crazy thing about it is that one of the guys who they interviewed was like, "Look, Americans can actually move to Ireland, bring the tech that they're working on now, and that's going to make Ireland better. We may
yeah,
still be
GDP.
behind the U.S., but we don't care
Mm-hmm.
GDP.
about being behind the
GDP.
U.S. Okay?
Like, think about it like this. 40% of most states GDP comes from entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like, and the thing is like, people are looking at this thing as it pertains to this whole AI wave and everything else. It's great. It's creating a
Yeah.
lot of opportunities within the entrepreneurship space. But then at the same token, it's like, it's also creating a system where you have to filter through good deals, bad deals, and all this other
Yeah.
stuff. It makes it even just more astounding.
Yeah.
Um, but, you know, hell, even venture capital is facing its day of reckoning as
Right.
well.
Right.
Venture capital and private equity. Like, think about private equity companies that gobbled up all those other companies. And
Yeah.
now they're just sitting there and it's just like, okay, hey, well, yeah, they're bringing in revenue, but essentially it's like, okay, hey, but they're still in our books.
Yeah.
Their expenses and everything else are still in their books. So if they want to go higher as it pertains to, like, scaling up and everything else, that's the cost that we have to eat. you
Right.
Mm-hmm.
know
Right.
there's those types of worries. I mean, if I even bring it down even on a further level, like if I just bring it down, like, so let's read the tea leaves again. You got auto loans that are at massive rates. So a person can put, like, imagine this, guys. A person could put down five to $10,000 down on a car, and then they could still be paying $1,500 a month.
That's
It's
crazy.
Okay,
crazy.
so then you got that. Then on top of that, you got a mortgage that was,
Mm.
that we went from 3% to now we're sitting at like what, 6.5%,
Yeah, six
or
and a
or
half.
five and a half
Yep.
percent, one of those two. So we got mortgage rates that are astronomical.
Yep.
And when you think about it, like when people say, "Oh, well, Mark, it's just 6%," in comparison, like, so for perspective, understand this: if you paying something at 3%, like, and then you go from paying something at 3% to now paying something at 6%, you're pretty much paying double what you've already paid.
Correct.
So like that 3 grand looks more like 6 grand a month.
Mhm. Pretty
Mm-hmm.
much.
Which
Yep.
is like, it's now turning into a renter's market. It's turning into
Yep.
a renter's market for sure. But then the crazy part about it is, like, and here's the mindset where I'm truly saying that people need just to mentally reset. Like, people will talk about, wealth and all this other stuff, but it's like, look, ooh, I'm gonna say that for the summit.
Yep. Yep. I
I'm
already
gonna
said
say that
that.
for a summit. I'm gonna say that for a summit. But
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, like, look, there's gonna be a lot of folks in hot water as the temperature starts to go up, and
Yeah.
essentially people are not gonna be able to take the temperature. Like,
Yeah.
take all the things into consideration. And the best of it, like, if people are asking me, like, well, Mark, what do we do today? Well, like I said, I try to teach people 70/30 for a reason.
Mm.
Yeah.
I try to
Yeah.
teach people 70/30 for a reason. And the reason why I try to teach people 70/30 was because ultimately it would prepare you for what's coming.
Yep.
And like I said, if I'm scared, and if you like, and mind you, I'm good.
Yeah.
But if I'm scared,
Yep.
like, I'm scared for, like, the masses and everything else and the people around me, then you
Mm-hmm.
should be petrified.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that, and mind you, this is no marketing ploy or anything like that. If you don't want to come to the summit, you don't want to come to the summit. That's fine. I'm
Right.
just saying that essentially, like, look, people really need to start reading into what's happening into not only just the stock market, because, like, for example, Microsoft just cut 9,000 jobs. That 9,000 jobs cut about two and a half, or anywhere from two and a quarter to roughly, what is it, $3.5 billion, as it
Yeah.
pertains to expense that can ultimately go and literally resolve, their quarter. So, which means
Yep.
that, okay, hey, yeah, we had a great quarter, but look at what happened
Mhm.
in process. And Wall Street's not stupid; they're not
No.
slow.
No.
So essentially, like, okay, hey, well, you cut $3.5 billion this quarter, so are you going to cut again for the next quarter? Are you doing that to prop yourself up for? Will that take you through the rest of the year? Like,
Yeah.
those are the questions in which that investors are going to want to have. And like I said, there's going to be a lot of questions that investors are going to probably have going into this earnings season as we, like,
Yep.
prepare for going into the close of the year.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep. Well,
So
guys, look, it's been an hour and a half. I'm gonna have to drop, and I know Mark probably got more birthday things to do. Again, happy birthday! Glad
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
things went well. We're gonna know that Butter's gonna make a recovery. Guess got to go through some things, but we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna
Yeah.
go through that. And thanks again for showing up. I got to drive and go do some family
Mm-hmm.
things myself right quick and get ready for work
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
and
Mark, before you go though, can you tell people where they can find tickets if they're interested in going? Remind us the dates,
Yeah, so just go to
location.
just so September 18th through the 20th here in Seattle, Washington. I always say the home of innovation and the birthplace of it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be having it at the Hilton Motif in downtown Seattle. So we go from University
Mm-hmm.
of Washington last year to now we're in downtown Seattle. So you don't have to go all the way from the airport to to your district. You can just come
downtown.
into
Yeah.
downtown Seattle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can literally get your tickets at the Tech Wealth Summit .com. And ultimately, yeah,
WealthTechSummit.com, right?
No,
the
Tech Wealth.
the
Tech.
Tech Wealth Summit.com.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, let me just write that down for people. Anyways, it's gonna be once we close, they won't see the chat. So the Wealth Tech Summit. The techwealthsummit.com. The tech
There
wealth.
you
So the two T's better come back to back. All right. I tried to get my tickets before, and for whatever reason, when I was in Montenegro, it wasn't working.
go.
So
Oh
I
yeah,
got to
so
try again.
we hadn't dropped it because I think that was the day when we said it, they drop at noon, and I think everybody thought that it was dropping noon, whether in East Coast time or whatever. Mind you, I'm in Pacific time,
Ah,
so yeah,
okay. Well, there you go. I was like, man, this Montenegro is funny. It'll let me buy everything except for this one ticket. So I
yeah,
hope to see you guys there.
yeah. So like I said, tickets they should be live. The early bird tickets are 95, and once those things
Yep.
sell out, they go up to I think 120. And
Mhm.
then the VIP tickets are $200.
Mhm. And
So
I
Okay.
have to say, I loved the summit last year. It was for somebody like me who doesn't like massive crowds where you feel like you can't find anybody. It
hmm
was intimate enough where, if you knew a couple of people, it was easy to find them and then start to introduce yourself to others and meet other people and make great connections. So anybody that's on the call that hasn't gotten their ticket, consider it, do it fast because the tickets will sell out just like they did last year.
yeah.
And if you can get the VIP ticket, that was absolutely worth it. So last year, so it was a great, great setup, great situation, great speakers. So I definitely look forward to this coming. But it is in September, and my kids start school, so I have to find someone to figure that out. But I do hope to come over and be able to join you guys again for the weekend. It was
Yeah,
absolutely
we hope to see you.
worth
Like,
it.
well, so it'll go from, I think it goes from that Thursday to Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and then essentially, like,
Yeah.
like this year, we wanted people to also be able to explore Seattle and see Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because they didn't get to do that last year, and
Yeah.
so that was one of the reasons why we took it from UW campus to downtown Seattle, so that
Mm-hmm.
way people can actually go see the city, see what's happening, see feel the life of it.
Okay.
So that's gonna be pretty cool. And also the VIP tickets, at the end of like by Wednesday, all VIPs will get access to a founders bash that's gonna like put you in a room with all of Silicon Valley, Seattle-based VC. So if you're an entrepreneur, you definitely want to book those VIPs because then we'll be sending those off to the founders bash and that'll make it free for entry for you to go to that event.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
All right,
thank you
guys. You
again,
guys
Mark,
have a
for
good rest
joining
of your day.
us
Yep.
on your
Thanks for
happy
having me,
birthday
guys.
weekend. And welcome to your 40s. So thanks everyone for joining
Glad to
us.
be
And
here.
if
All
you do have
righty.
any other questions, follow one of us. You can send us in the chat, and I'm sure one of us will be able to get back to you with more feedback and look forward to seeing you guys in September. Bye for
Thank
now,
Thank you for
you.
having me,
friends.
y'all.
All righty. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining. Ciao.